Hi, it's Carol from Crinkled Path Journals, and I'm still working on the flight journal. I'm working on the cover today. So I'm going to be painting and then attaching this. I have to cut the spine off because I'm going to have to make a spine that all my signatures will fit in, but I want to save this top flight part of the cover so that I can put it on the back so that it will still read Top Flight. So thanks for joining me today as we do another piece to our start to finish journal. I'm just using craft paint in Admiral Blue. It's probably going to take a couple coats to get this edge covered to where I'm not seeing the images on the cover through the paint. Of course, most of it's going to be covered with this, so thankfully I only have to do the edges. It's dried. I think I need to add a little more just here on the spine where some of the other color is coming through. And then I think I'm going to use some white to splatter some stars on. So I'm actually going to go ahead and use my art glitter glue to put this down, and then I'm going to cover the whole cover with a clear Art Basics gesso. This is a very smooth, almost like Mod Podge, but it doesn't absorb moisture the way Mod Podge does, and so it doesn't get tacky if you have it somewhere where there's moisture in the air. It'll dry with a nice matte clear finish, and hopefully will protect our paint from getting scraped off and protect our vintage paper that we don't want to deteriorate. I'm going to try and get as close to the edges as I can. If a little bit squeezes out from under, it's okay because the gesso will cover it and it won't be shiny. If this was a little thinner, I would just use the gesso to apply it, but since it almost has a cardstock weight, I wanted a little more hefty glue. I'm gonna put this one down here. It's not exactly lined up, and I am gonna be cutting this piece of the spine off. But once the signatures are in, it's not likely that the book will ever lay this flat open to really notice that it's not exactly lined up. This little science pamphlet didn't have a spine, it was just folded over. This is the part that was folded and it wants to buckle a little bit. I'm going to try and see if I can get a little extra glue under there. Okay, here comes the scary part. We gotta cut the spine off. Don't worry. It will only hurt for a minute. It would probably tear actually easier than it's cutting, but I'm really afraid it wouldn't tear straight. And I've only got one that has the actual title on it, so I don't want to mess it up. All this is going to be covered up. You don't have to worry about that. All right, so now for our gesso. This is very runny. Something else that would be comparable would be a matte gel medium like Liquitex. You don't want to use a fine art gesso like a clear Liquitex gesso. Dina Wakley might be okay. Her gesso tends to be pretty smooth. Most gesso got like grit in it because it's made to put on canvases so that you can have tooth for your acrylic paint to kind of grip to when you paint on a canvas. So it is a canvas prep material, and so it's generally the fine art brands are gritty because that's what you need for fine art painting. This clear gesso is basically a waterproofing sealant, and I'm going right up against the edge to try and sort of fill the gesso into any cracks or any porous area where the paper was torn. I love my silicone mat because I can just paint right off the edge or gesso right off the edge, and it will clean right off of this with just water and a sponge or paper towel. It's not the prettiest thing. I'm often envious of those of you who have your desk set up to look so nice for filming, but I'm kind of messy, so if you have tips for a prettier mat, let me know in the comments. This silicone mat has served me well. Now I'm just going over not an entirely second coat, but just enough that I've got all my brush strokes kind of going in the right direction and it's nice and smooth. I'm putting it on pretty thin. If you glob it on too thick, it can be more cloudy because the bottom layers won't dry as the top ones do. So I try not to put it on too thick. You can use a brush for this, but you have to wash your brushes really quickly right after you use it. In fact, I usually just keep a water cup on my desk to plop my brush in immediately when I'm done, because I have ruined a lot of brushes with my gesso just by not being quick enough and getting them washed out. That one's looking pretty good. Do this one. I do a few custom journals a year, so if you have a kind of odd theme or something that you're not finding out in the marketplace and you're interested in having a custom journal made, you can always direct message me through Instagram at Crinkled Path is the Instagram handle, same as my YouTube channel, or you can message me by commenting on the video, giving me some place on social media where I can contact you and we can have a private conversation if you're curious about that. Doing the dragon journal and now doing this journal, which are very unusual, have been a good stretch for me, and I really like hunting down ephemera and trying to make the person happy who I'm making the journal for, because it is something so unique to them. I think these are pretty good. Now I need to go wash this brush before I ruin another one, right? So while we're waiting for the cover to dry, we want to work on our actual spine. And this is what's going to give the structural foundation to the book. And we want to take into consideration that it's going to accommodate all of these signatures. That's a big fat book. But that's what we wanted, right? I was talking about that from the beginning, that we want something that's kind of overstuffed already, because they're not likely going to add more paper items to this. They'll just be writing in this. First and foremost, I have it marked for the height of the book. Well, you can't see anything at all when I do that. I think for the most part, I'm height-wise within the height of the cover. And so then it's just a matter of width. So we have 9 signatures. And I usually like to, at a minimum, have a 1/4 of an inch between signatures. So we're looking at 1 inch for the first 3 signatures. So 1/4 inch space, signature, 1/4 inch space, signature, 1/4 inch space, signature, 1/4 inch space. That's 1 inch. Then the signature, 1/4 inch space, signature, 1/4 inch space, signature, 1/4 inch space, signature, 1/4 inch space. That's another inch. Signature, 1/4 inch space, signature, 1/4 inch space. So that's a 1/2 inch. So a total of 2.5 inches wide. And I probably want to square this side up a little bit because it's a little rough. So total height, I have 8 15/16. Probably just go with a even 9, and then I can trim it down if needed. Remember, the height of the cover that we painted is what's dictating the height of the spine. I'm going to attempt to cut this. It's very thick. Okay, that was a bit of a ride on the struggle bus, but we got it done. And this is not anything fancy. It's just a piece of cardboard that probably was a book cover at some point with something covering it that's been ripped off, which is why there's all this shreddy paper. But it is a nice, heavy, substantial piece. I don't have to worry about it being absolutely perfect in the edges have to be straight, but if they're not smooth, it's okay, because typically once the signatures are sewn to this, it's going to be covered. Now we want to make a template, preferably out of cardstock, so let me grab a piece of that. So we want the template to match the spine. Oh, so much easier. I'm going to go with a little bit shorter ruler this time. Grab my bookbinding bag. So now I need to mark every 1/4 inch. Oh, and I'm going to start by saying this is the top. I guess because I traced around the outside, it added 2/16 of an inch. So can't have that. Measure and remeasures what the name of the game is. So we have to keep this part precise, or you will be very frustrated trying to fit your signatures into something that is off kilter. All right, 2.5 inches, and we're going to mark. So I don't measure, I kind of eyeball to the center. I'm doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Just marking at the 1/4 inch marks. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to come up here and do the same thing. About 1.5 inches down from the top. Again, I'm just eyeballing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And at the bottom, once again, maybe about 1.5 inches from the bottom. Don't move on me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I'm just going to use a part of a gutted book. This is definitely something where I'm not going to use these pages. I use them only for this. And I'm going to use my bookbinding kit. And in here, I have an awl. It's a very sharp awl. I have 2 different sizes, actually. I think I'm going to go ahead and use the smaller one. I'm going to use some wax thread. I have some clips to hold my signatures. Binder clips. I have a thimble. And then I have a needle with a big eye, but that is just slightly smaller than the hole punch I'm going to use. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put holes in with our awl everywhere where I marked. Okay, there's our template. Going to have to now punch holes in the spine. So once again, I'm going to mark the top. I have to trim that bottom edge just like I did the side from the whole tracing around, making it a little bit bigger than the original. If you're doing this for the first time and you feel a little clumsy about it, you can always take a little bit of washi tape and tape your template to your spine. I'm just gonna go for it. Try and hold it as still as possible. Directing my pressure straight down and into that book. For obvious reasons, we're going through the cardboard and into the book to save the desk. All right, I've got all the holes punched. This is going to be a hidden spine, and so it doesn't really matter if they're perfectly straight. If you are going to have a spine where the threads are going to show on the outside of the book, you probably want to work on being more precise. That being said, a hidden spine has a couple extra steps, but it's not necessarily harder to make, in my opinion. Now we're going to do our signatures. Let me grab one here. So we're going to take our signature, we're going to open it this way, and we're going to decide where we want the pages. You can do them flush against the bottom. You can center some in the middle of the signature. Let me see if I can get to a short page and I can do that. So for now, I'm just aligning them all with the bottom. And I'm just pushing them so that the valley of fold is nice and tight up against each other. So like this short little piece, I could center it in the book rather than putting it at the bottom. Can do the same with this one. So once I get to the center of the signature and I've positioned the pages high and low where I want them on the page, I'm going to clip them into place so that they're not sliding around. I usually start with the upper right hand corner, and I want to make sure I'm getting all of the pages. Then I move down to the bottom corner, which I'm not very good with squeezing this with my left hand. Coordination and strength. Then the upper left. And the bottom right. And it doesn't really matter where you start or end putting the clips on, but I do think you should go across because it keeps them more sturdy. And I grabbed the rest of the gutted book. I want one with a valley here, and that's going to help me to hold my signature when I'm punching it so that it doesn't move very much. I'm only going to do one at a time, don't worry. And I want to do one more thing with my template before I start punching into the signatures. I grabbed my scoreboard because I would really like to have this be valleyed as well so that it aligns right. And if I measured correctly, at the 1/4 inch mark should be right over my holes. So we're gonna check ourselves on that. If you don't have a scoreboard, you can use a ruler. You can try and fold the paper. I find that it's hard to get it precise when you're just folding, but if you're only doing 1 or 2 signatures, that is a pretty easy solution. All right, so now I'm just going to give these a little press. If you tend to make journals the same size, you can make your template like this and just save it. I have a template made for little golden book journals that I save in my bookbinding kit for the next time, so I don't have to do this process over again. I'm gonna peek at my little corner because I marked the corner, front corner of the signature with the number that it belongs to, and then I numbered the top of the template so that I know which one of these holes is going to match with this. Now I'm going to put the first fold of the template. So I'm going flush with the bottom here, putting it in place. I'm going to slide it into the valley of the book. And you do want the book to be at least as long as all 3 of your holes you're trying to make. And then I'm going to punch through the signature into the valley of the book. And now I have my 3 holes for sewing. I'll do that one more time. So typically once I'm to this step, I will punch the template I'll punch the signature with the template, and then I will sew it to the spine. But just so you can see it again, I will do the same thing again. My signature into the valley. I'm going to the second row of holes now, aligning my template with the bottom of the signature, making sure I'm in the valley. Hold it all steady. Punch down into the valley of the book. Again, when I pick it up, hold it up to the light, I should see daylight through those holes. And you do not want to take these clips off until you've sewed them into place, which is the main reason I don't just do this all in succession, is because I only have so many of the binder clips. This is the paper pack that I used for the signature covers. I just got it at Michael's. It's their Craftsmart brand, and they put these on sale quite inexpensively. I'm just going to grab a piece to cover our spine. I'm going to mark the back since I'm going to be covering that up. Whoops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This will get covered later. The nice thing about doing this after you punch the holes is that you won't get glue where you're going to be sticking your needle through. I'm going to grab my book again, and I'm going to press through the paper onto my book again. And since I'm only going through that one piece of paper now, it's quick. It looks like we've run out of time. So in our next episode, I'll be showing you how to sew in the signatures and finish covering the spine. Thanks for coming along. Bye-bye.